Dark streets, cold nights, truths on the run. Buried secrets were the ones who dig them up for fun. Headstones in the graveyard where stories reside. We bring back headlines, no place to hide. Try to cover it, but we'll find the trace. Shadows and whispers, no escape from this place. Headstones and headlines, where the truth collides. We'll expose the lies. There's no middle line. From the dirt to the brick, we'll make it clear. True crime uncovered, it's why we're here. The headline tells a tale of deceit. From the grave to the page, the truth remains. Cold cases, long leads, nothing gets by. We turn the stones, leave no questions why. You can run, but we're hard on the trail. Every secret's revealed, no matter how stale. Headstones and headlines, where the truth collides. We'll expose the lies. There's no middle high. From the dirt to the brick, we'll make it clear. True crime uncovered, it's why we're here. In the dark of the night, we bring it to light. Every crime, every lie, every fight. No stone left unturned, no truth left unsaid. We write the headlines from the graves of the dead. Headstones and headlines, where the truth collides. We'll expose the lies. There's no middle high. From the dirt to the brick, we'll make it clear. True crime uncovered, it's why we're here. Headstones and headlines, where the stories remain. We dig 'em up, we feel their pain. The truth is out, the case is closed, but our search for justice never slows.
Hey everyone, happy Friday. Gosh, and I am glad it is Friday. This week seemed like it took forever. And possibly because state exams are next week. So, it's crunch time, trying to get in all the review. And the second quarter also ended today. So we are halfway through the school year, which is insane. So thanks for being here. Sorry I was late. I, for some reason, thought I scheduled it for 3:45 instead of 3:30. But thankfully, I was pretty much ready to go. So thanks for being here, Sinner. Patty, good to see you. I wish I could type faster. Oh, it's okay. Yeah, it has been a little while. Yeah, and I actually haven't been going live as much as I used to. But I need to change that. And I think I might have only made one short this week as well, maybe two. So I need to step up my game a little bit here. Victoria, thanks for being here. Good to see you. So today we are going to look at updates in the Robert Brooks case, who, if you don't know who Robert Brooks is, he was incarcerated at Marcy Correctional Facility in just outside Utica, New York, so upstate. And he was tortured and beaten to death by over a dozen correctional officers and or nurses. Give me 1 second. No, Betty. Are you going to say hi? No, you can't be up here. Get down. Sorry about that. My cat almost jumped right on the keyboard. Not sure if you heard her, but Betty's excited. So Robert, what was I saying? She completely distracted me. So he was beaten, tortured, and ultimately lost his life by the hands of now 17 officers and or nurses. There were 4 more individuals who have been fired in regards to this. And yesterday, the family, so Robert Brooks's son and brother, along with their attorneys, I'm losing the word. Sorry, I'm completely distracted by the cats. They were racing around like crazy. They announced that they have filed a federal lawsuit in regards to Mr. Brooks' death. So we're going to take a look at, there's an article from the Times-Union, which is out of Albany, New York, and it kind of does a summary of everything that's happened thus far. And then we'll take a look at the press conference, which was about 30 minutes. We'll give some last thoughts, and then we will wrap things up. Hey, Ninja, how are you? Gosh, I haven't seen one of your lives in forever. Not in forever. Hey, Road Rash, good to see you. Yeah, cat attack. I heard them, and right when I said, hang on, because I was going to tell them to knock it off, Betty came flying across the room and jumped on my desk. And then I was like, no, you can't be over here. So they finally went somewhere else to chase each other. All right, so let me add this. Excuse me. So this is from the Times-Union, and this was from today. Officers in Marcy beating violated multiple body camera policies, which, based on New York law that I had looked up, I knew. There was discrepancies on whether they had to always use them, and that came from the governor herself. There was an article that we had read in regards to Governor Hochul's visit to Marcy Correctional and the use of body cams. Long story short, those that were wearing body cams thought they weren't on. They didn't think they were going to get caught. But thankfully, they were. Because if not for that body cam footage, I don't think any of them would be in the situation they are now. So. Hey, Healing Time, how are you? Only 7:46 a.m. Saturday, still under blankets but listening. What's the weather there, Healing? It was pretty cold here. It was high of 20. It was pretty frigid. So let's see. The State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, and from this point forward, I'm just going to say Department of Corrections, is moving to make permanent updates to its policies governing. Ooh, that's way too big. Governing the use of body cameras after several officers and their supervisors had their devices turned off during an incident at Marcy Correctional Facility last month, in which inmate Robert L. Brooks died after he was beaten while handcuffed. The death of Brooks, which is the focus of an ongoing criminal investigation by state police and the Onondaga County District Attorney's Office, exposed the apparently rampant violations of the department's policy governing the use of body-worn cameras, as well as supervisors' failure to enforce the rules. Hey, Marie, thanks for being here. Oh my gosh, Ninja. You know what? I wonder if that's what's happening. I was thinking, because I've lost quite a few subs as well. And then I was thinking maybe it's because, they had said if Google emails haven't been used for a certain amount of time, that they would be closing those accounts. But how? That is insane. Canceled 700 subs? Oh my gosh. I didn't know they did that. That is wild. Gosh. Oh, I bet you reached 10K. You were over 10K and then they took 700 away. How rude. How rude. Hey, Curious. Okay, so we did that. Body cameras were deployed at Marcy State Prison in May. That came as the department has been slowly deploying the devices at prison since 2017, when New York launched a pilot program seeking to become the first state to equip its correctional staff with the recording devices. Wow, it's only been now almost 8 years. Since then, the body cameras and increases in fixed camera systems have been expanded across numerous facilities, although many prisons still do not have them in use. Still, the incident at Marcy confirmed that some incidents of physical force are not being recorded, even when officers are wearing body cameras and supervisors are monitoring their actions. At least 2 sergeants who were present when Brooks was being beaten, or standing nearby also did not activate their cameras to record the December 9th incident. 3 officers and a sergeant who had turned on their body cameras had not activated the devices to begin recording when other officers began using physical force on Brooks. But the incident was still captured on video. The Times-Union first reported last month that the body cameras worn by those 4 correction officers, including the sergeant, were passively recording portions of the incident, even though their devices had not been activated to record. Investigators were able to retrieve the video footage from those 4 devices because of a function on the Axon cameras, unknown to the officers, that they were recording video when turned on, even if they had not been activated. Well, officers are going to know now, unfortunately. What the policy required. The department declined to provide a copy of its body-worn camera policy that was in effect during the incident that preceded Brooks's death. Officials directed the Times-Union to file a formal FOIA for the document. But a copy of that 5-page policy obtained from a confidential source indicates that supervisors were given some discretion on whether to activate body cameras. The policy also did not make clear whether body cameras must be activated any time physical force is being used against an inmate. So in other words, there are loopholes to that. Hey, Slaughter Gang, thanks for being here. Okay, 30 Celsius, 86 Fahrenheit, hot, humid days. Thunderstorms at night. It's been a hot, wet summer in my part of Australia. One place that I've always wanted to go is Australia. That is on my bucket list. I hope I'll be able to, get there, at some point in my life. Okay. The policy stipulated that incidents and activities that shall be video recorded include, but are not limited to, use or expected use of force during cell or room extractions and or entries. Brooks had just arrived at the prison Brooks had just arrived at the prison and was not in a cell. So there were some people talking about this case a week or so ago, and they were stating that Mr. Brooks had been there for several months. No, he had just gotten there when this happened. The policy shared with the Times-Union, which had not been updated since December 2022, also stipulated that body cameras must be activated when, quote, responding to emergency situations. For example, levels, medical responses, fires, civilian personal alarms, or any other type of facility disturbance, and any other activity as directed by the watch commander or high-ranking supervisor. Brooks was punched, kicked, and choked after he had just been moved to Marcy Correctional from nearby Mohawk Correctional, where sources told the Times-Union that he had been attacked at least twice by other inmates. 4 Marcy officers carried him from a prison sally port into the nearby infirmary with his arms handcuffed behind his back. He was placed on an exam bed and surrounded by numerous officers and at least 2 sergeants. I agree, Curious. He either was injured. Personally, I think he was injured during the ride to Marcy because it's only about a 10 to 15 minute drive from Mohawk to Marcy. So I think he was hurt in the on his way. That's just my opinion. Because when they carried him out of the sally port, it appeared that he was unconscious. Regardless, he was not able to walk on his own. So something definitely happened. The officers began striking Brooks, who was still handcuffed, after one of them had wiped his face with a white rag and appeared to try and push it into Brooks's mouth. The Times-Union reported last month that officers had alleged they began using physical force on Brooks after he tried to bite one of them. If that occurred, the level of force used on Brooks was both excessive and unnecessary, according to interviews with law enforcement sources and veteran correction officers who watched the videos. I would tend to agree. The policy also required officers to power on their body cameras as soon as they are issued to them at the beginning of a shift. The camera does not record until the record button is activated, the policy noted. The assigned body camera will be worn on the upper torso at chest height, affixed to the outermost garment to ensure an unobstructed view. And I believe in the video, one of the correctional officers had the body cam on, but it was underneath something like his jacket or that was zipped up, something like that. It wasn't noticeably seen. Let's see, I just want to get to these comments. Jails are chaotic places, yeah. Something very suspicious as to why. I agree. Slaughter, it's possible that he passed out. I mean, his face was swollen when he was brought into the infirmary. So whatever happened. I mean, unless one of the fights with other inmates had occurred just before they transported him, but I feel like the paperwork would take a while to have someone transported to a different facility. To me, it appeared he was unconscious or semi-conscious. Good point, Curious. If he had been injured at Mohawk, why not treat him there? Good point. Very good point. On December 18th, more than a week after the fatal incident at Marcy, State Corrections Commissioner Daniel F. Marticello III issued an agency-wide memo to noting the camera should be turned on and actively recording any time a correction officer wearing one is interacting with an inmate. I feel it should be more specific in that, because it says actively recording any time a correction officer wearing one is interacting. Well, they should be wearing it. So this is a little vague in that, well, if they're not wearing it, it doesn't have to be actively recording. The department promptly provided the Times-Union with a copy of that policy update last month. How convenient. The memo, under the subject line, Important Notification and Immediate Policy Updates, noted that the rules include recording any interactions with inmates in medical units, which is where the incident with Brooks unfolded. Marticello's memo also noted that every employee has a duty to immediately report any individual who intentionally or unintentionally circumvents the body-worn camera policy. Anyone found to have violated the law or DOCCS policy will be held accountable. There is no place in DOCCS for anyone who violates our policies or the law, and anyone who does will be held accountable. A medical examiner's preliminary determination was that Brooks, who suffered fractures and soft tissue injuries to his upper body, groin, neck, and head, may have died as a result of asphyxia due to compression of the neck. A final report is expected to include the results of any toxicology reports that may reveal whether there were any narcotics or other substances in Brooks's bloodstream, and whether something other than physical force may have caused his death. And here's the... First of all, it doesn't matter, in my opinion, if he was on substances. He was unconscious. He was not able to fight back. And the force was excessive. And of course, once there are arrests, which I believe there will be, that is something that they're going to argue. Based on the toxicology, well, he died from that, so we didn't kill him. I'm sorry. My opinion is that officer that lifted him up by his neck is the one who killed him. The other ones also helped to cause his demise. Hey, Karma, thanks for being here. The video indicated that 5 of the officers used physical force that included closed fist punches, kicking Brooks's genital area, and lifting him up by his neck. Some of them also applied pressure with their hands to Brooks's face or neck. At one point, after an officer had placed his gloved hand over Brooks's face or mouth, they hoisted him into a sitting position, and Brooks appeared to gasp for air. Near the end of the 10-minute ordeal, 2 officers hoisted Brooks off his feet and carried him by his neck area to the corner of the room. See, I didn't see that part, so I didn't realize that had happened. Carried him to the corner of the room and pressed him face first against a window. It's unclear if they were searching him for contraband or had conducted any type of cavity search. At one point, the body cam shows them lift Brooks high in the air off his feet in the corner. When they carried him back to the infirmary bed, he appeared to be unconscious and was no longer handcuffed, as officers stripped off his clothes and 2 male nurses were allowed to examine him. In the ensuing minutes after Brooks had appeared to lose consciousness and the nurses checked his vitals again, he was given at least 2 doses of Narcan, an opioid antagonist that is administered with a nasal spray and can help reverse a drug overdose, according to a person briefed on the matter. But multiple corrections department sources said that didn't mean Brooks had overdosed, only that the policy required the drug to be administered to him because he had appeared to stop breathing. The nurses also used CPR and a defibrillator to try and revive Brooks, according to the person briefed on details of the incident. Corrections officials have declined to say when officers called an ambulance or how long it took them to transport Brooks to a nearby hospital in Utica, where he was pronounced dead. At Marcy, federal lawsuits have alleged officers Federal lawsuits have alleged officers have systematically beaten inmates in areas of the prison they know there are no cameras. And I agree, because this isn't the first lawsuit to be filed. Four of the officers involved in Mr. Brooks's death are also named in a previous lawsuit that is still in active litigation in regards to another inmate who was severely beaten. Yeah, I agree, Karma. So much BS. True. Curious. I doubt the rag in the mouth is procedure. Yeah. 2 years ago, Amy Jane Agnew, a civil rights attorney whose firm focuses on representing the rights of inmates, including seeking better health care, filed a federal lawsuit against former Marcy Superintendent Michael Demore and other corrections officials, alleging she and her staffers were being inhibited from providing legal advice to their clients. That included not being allowed to exchange legal documents with her clients, she alleged, and some confidential files were being taken away or examined by corrections officers. Agnew's federal lawsuit also alleged that inmates were routinely taken on van rides for no apparent reason other than to physically assault them as punishment for filing grievances or meetings with her or her colleagues. Security administrators have known about these, quote, van rides for years, yet allow them to continue as a form of behavior control and to deter prisoners from exercising their First Amendment rights or engaging in any behavior that staff regard as a threat to the status quo. Onondaga County District Attorney William J. Fitzpatrick has said he will not comment on his office's investigation of the death of Brooks until the case has been reviewed by a grand jury. 17 Corrections Department employees, 4 sergeants, 11 correction officers, and 2 nurses have been suspended and are facing discipline. Farina, who was among the 5 officers shown using physical force on Brooks, resigned immediately following the incident. So it appears they may not have been fired yet. I may have misspoke. And Farina, I would assume, because in one of the articles we read, the state investigators had said that if the accused answered their questions, they would have the opportunity to either resign or retire, which I don't agree with. Hey, Shaylee, thanks for being here. Attorneys for the officers who were retained last month at the direction of the New York State Correctional Officers and Police Benevolent Association, which represents correction officers, this has a lot of typos in it, which represents correction officers, said union officials recently informed them that it would not be covering any legal costs associated with the criminal investigation. That decision came after union officials initially told those attorneys that the organization would pay each up to $5,000 for legal fees during the investigation and up to $25,000 for any prosecution or trial costs. Interesting. The union issued a statement Thursday stating that although the officers' applications for criminal defense representation was initially approved, they were subsequently rejected because it was determined by the union's board that their actions were not found to be, quote, within the lawful performance of their job duties. Good for the union. Good for the union. Let them pay for their own. Earlier this week, attorneys representing Brooks' 27-year-old son filed a federal lawsuit against Marticello, former acting Marcy Superintendent Danielle Medbury, and more than a dozen officers implicated in the incident. Medbury was relieved of her duties last month on the same day that Governor Hochul toured the embattled prison. The swift filing of the family's federal lawsuit came after top state officials, including Marticello and Hochul, have publicly condemned the actions of the officers, including several sergeants and nurses. Hochul asked Marticello, whom she appointed commissioner of the agency in May, to initiate proceedings to terminate all of those employees. One of the nurses is employed by a private contractor. Interesting. The lawsuit, filed in U.S. District Court in Utica, cites the department's documented history of correction officers using excessive force. Many of the incidents date back decades and were sustained through internal investigations, criminal prosecutions, or civil trials. The civil rights lawsuit also invokes news reports and studies by the Correctional Association of New York that have revealed decades of physical abuse of inmates by officers that had been both tolerated by supervisors and systematically covered up. Jennifer Scaife, executive director of the Correctional Association of New York, an independent organization authorized to monitor prison conditions and report its findings publicly, said that updating the department's body camera policy is not enough. Staff who don't want to follow the rules will continue to find ways not to follow the rules. An updated policy is only as good as the department's ability to enforce it, and it's not clear to me that those safeguards are fully in place. I agree with her. If they don't want to follow the rules, they're not going to follow the rules. They're going to find a way around it. And if they have sergeants or supervisors who are breaking the same rules, who's going to oversee that they're actually doing what they're supposed to be doing? The FBI and U.S. Justice Department, which has a civil rights division that handles criminal cases involving law enforcement misconduct, including instances of excessive force, have also been reviewing the case but have given no indication they will intervene. The decision by the Attorney General's office to step aside in the criminal investigation and have Fitzpatrick appointed as a special prosecutor was based on its ongoing work defending civil lawsuits filed previously against 4 of the officers involved in the beating of Brooks. The Attorney General's office subsequently recused itself from defending those officers in unrelated civil lawsuits alleging similar incidents of excessive force. I had not heard that. So the Attorney General's office has actually recused themselves from the other unrelated civil lawsuits. Also interesting. Hey, Bridget, thanks for being here. Oh, and that was it. Okay. So very thorough article, kind of gave an, overview of what had happened without having to see the graphic video. I didn't put it in the description, but I will link this video after the live to my first video, which has all of the links and information regarding those. If you so choose to watch them, I would caution you very strongly. When they first came out, I didn't realize they were going to be as graphic as they were. And I probably only watched about 20 to 30 seconds until I thought I was going to be physically ill. So I have not watched all of them, but there are several that are located on the Attorney General's website. I agree, Marie. No victim or family should ever have to endure this. The federal investigation in Massachusetts regarding corruption with multiple deaths is another example of how accountability needs to be maintained. And Mr. Brooks is not the first person to have died at Marcy. Earlier in the year, and I don't remember his name, there was another man, a white man, who died at the prison. So clearly these officers who they've referred to as a goon squad, I'm sure have done this to many, many others. Hey, Nanny, thanks for being here. So we are going to next watch the press conference that Mr. Brooks' son and brother gave, and also their legal team was present. I think this one, the volume might be a little bit low, so you may have to turn it up. I tried to get one of the news sources that was a little bit louder, but with all press conferences, it seems that the audio is not very good. And I will not talk during this. I'll chat, but I won't talk over the presser.
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Mazur, Elizabeth Mazur, from the law firm Hughes, Sokol, Piers, Resnick, and Dim. I'm joined this morning by my colleague, attorney Steve Schwartz of Faraci Lang. I'm also joined by Robert Brooks Jr., the son of Robert L. Brooks, and Jared Ricks, the brother of Robert L. Brooks, both of whom you'll hear from shortly. On December 9th, 2024, officers at Marcy Correctional Facility tortured and killed Robert L. Brooks. During this horrific occurrence, several other Marcy staff stood by, watched, and did nothing. Robert had done nothing to justify the use of any force against him, much less deadly force. Unbeknownst to Robert's killers, body-worn camera passively recorded much of the attack on video. As Marcy staff beat Robert to death, they believed that their actions would never see the light of day. After killing Robert, they went about their daily business as usual. Although the video of Robert's killing is extremely difficult to watch, it holds a mirror up to the violence and abuse Marcy prisoners face on a regular basis. It shows what Marcy correctional officers will do when they believe no one is watching. It paints an all too real picture of the rampant abuses that New York prisoners have reported for years, pleading for help and warning that the lives of people in custody in New York prisons are profoundly at risk. This morning, we have filed a federal civil rights lawsuit in the United States District Court for the Northern District of New York on behalf of the estate of Robert L. Brooks. Mr. Brooks was paying his debt to society. He deserved to live. He deserved the opportunity to finish his sentence and return to his family and his community. Now I'm going to turn it over to Robert's beloved son, Robert Jr.
You just like talking. Good morning. My name is Robert Brooks Jr. Today, my family is going through an unimaginable amount of pain. No one should have to experience what we are experiencing. The murder of my father by the people who are supposed to keep him safe. But we are also feeling incredible support for our community here in Rochester and everyone who's reached out all over the country. We want to say thank you to everyone who is standing up and saying what happened to my father should have not happened to anyone. I can't describe what it's like to receive the news of his murder or the experience of watching that awful video. I felt helpless, like I was there with him and there was nothing I could do. I wouldn't wish this nightmare on anyone. But as painful as it is important that the world sees these images. They have the power to spark the change we need. I want to tell you more about my father, though. He was more than the last final moments. Robert L. Brooks was a neighborhood hero. He was a great man. He was everyone's favorite uncle. He wanted to make sure everybody was happy around him. That's what made him happy. He was very passionate of creating music and writing short stories. One of my favorite memories of my father is when his car broke down, but he still made sure we got to the studio every day. I will continue his legacy, and I will make him proud by making my music. While my father was serving out his sentence, we would talk regularly, and we began to dream of a new life when he had got out. Those officers in the system they worked for, they robbed us of that opportunity. And I would never get my father back. They'll have to take it from me forever, but we will not allow his death to be in vain. This pain must lead to justice for my father and for our family, and we will not stop fighting until we get it. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jared Ricks, Jared Ricks. Robert Brooks is my older brother and my only brother. Robert was 11 years and 1 day older than me, and as an older brother should, he was always there when I needed him. My first words were rah-rah for Robert. He was my role model, my voice of reason, my listening ear, and now he's gone. Growing up, I felt so lucky that Robert was my brother. Everyone loved Robert, and most of us wanted to be like him. I vividly remember rolling up to family gatherings and feeling like a celebrity as our family greeted us. Me personally, I wanted to walk like him, talk like him, dress like him. I wanted people to have that same glow when I walked in a room. No matter who you were or how long it'd been since he last seen you, he'd always make you feel important. My brother was my guardian angel before he got his wings. We frequently went to the movies, bowling, shopping. As I matured, he never shied away from those tough love conversations, which is part has given me the strength to be with you guys today. My brother and I shared a passion for music. He'd often bring me to the studio. When I got older, he started asking for my input on his music. He even let me get on one of his tracks, and I just knew we would go platinum. My brother had a meaningful and unique bond with so many people, some of whom I've known my entire life, and some who have shared their stories with me over the last month. My family and I are taking things day by day. You know, days turn to weeks, weeks turn to months, months turn to years. My brother had done 8 of the 12 years that he was sentenced to as seen fit in the eyes of the law. But the 17 individuals at Marcy Correctional Facility gave him a death sentence, and that's just not fair. People who are incarcerated are human beings. They have rights. They deserve to live without fear that something like this could happen to them. Our family is devastated, but we are also committed. We're going to use our agony to fight for justice so that no one has to watch clips of devastation 30 minutes at a time or go through the plethora of emotions that I've gone through in the last month. We want these killers prosecuted, and we want change. Big bro, we love you, and we won't stop fighting for justice and accountability in your name. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Steve Schwarz, Schwarz. I'm an attorney with Faraci Lang here in Rochester, one of the attorneys on this case. As you know, today we filed a complaint in the United States District Court for the Northern District of New York against 17 defendants who were directly or indirectly involved in causing Robert's brutal beating and resulting death. Because New York has sovereign immunity and cannot be sued in federal court for civil rights violations or wrongful death, we will soon be filing a separate action against the state of New York in the New York Court of Claims. Our legal team, headed by Liz Mazur of Hughes Sokol and me and my firm Faraci Lang, have extensive experience in this type of litigation. Our firms previously teamed up to successfully resolve the case involving the death of Daniel Krug 2 years ago. Our goal as attorneys is simple: to achieve some measure of justice for the family of Robert Brooks. We view that goal as having two separate but equally important components. First, we will pursue all legal avenues available to obtain compensation for Robert's family for what Robert endured in the last hours of his life and what his children have lost as a result of his death. But of equal importance to Robert Jr., Jared, and the rest of his family We will leave no stone unturned in ferreting out the entire story of how Robert wound up at Marcy and how those who perpetrated this atrocity and those who casually stood by and watched came to believe they would never be called to account for what they'd done. The complaint filed in federal court this morning details not only the acts of hatred and violence perpetrated against Robert Brooks, but numerous instances displaying a pattern of similar conduct that have been reported for years and never adequately addressed. It is the sincere desire of Robert's son, Jared, his brother, and the entire family, that Robert's tragic death not be an end, but a beginning to true reform of New York's medieval prison system that for too long has been driven by a culture of violence and intimidation. After years of lip service, we deem this a realistic opportunity for accomplishing meaningful change. These two goals can only be achieved by using every tool available under the law to uncover the entire story of Robert's death. We have filed the lawsuit this morning in federal court and will be filing the claim in the Court of Claims so we can begin the process of finding out how this horrible tragedy was allowed to happen and how similar tragedies can be averted in the future. With that, we will take your questions, and Joanna here will facilitate the questioning.
Jared and Robert, very sorry for your loss. I wonder if you have any idea of why Robert was at Marcy that evening, or in your discussions with him while he was incarcerated, did he ever said anything to indicate that he was worried about this kind of thing, or that this was something that he saw happening around?
Okay. At the present time, we have no information about those questions, and those are questions that we're going to get to the bottom of as soon as we can get started in discovery, but we don't have any information that can help on that.
Have you learned any more about the exact cause of death at this point? And are you pursuing this second lawsuit against specifically Dobbs?
Well, the second lawsuit is against the state of New York. The first lawsuit includes some supervisors in the dock system. And as far as your question to the cause of death was the beating that he took. We don't have the autopsy report yet, but there's no question that there's a causal link between what happened to him and his death. But we don't have any data from the medical examiner as of this point. That report frequently are delayed because of toxicology that they do, but we do expect it soon.
Jared, Robert, first let me offer my condolences as well. I think when everyone saw the video, there was this shock that it could have gotten to a point that we were seeing. What, if you can, share with us was your reaction when you saw that video for the first time, and had you known before that any of the circumstances that led to your father and your brother's death?
Want to start, Robert?
Yeah. So when I seen the video for the first time, I was speechless. I was devastated. I am a junior, so when I did see those officers beat my father, a part of it, I felt like I was there. I was him in that moment, and that it could happen to anyone. So the real word I would use is just devastated.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would say I was devastated as well. Just knowing that there were 17 individuals, however many were directly associated with delivering the lethal blows, but just knowing that I couldn't be there to help them, I just felt very helpless and enraged.
Do you, you've obviously probably seen that the governor has toured Marcy. There's a bunch of reforms that she's talked about. Do you think that's obviously too little too late in certain situations, but do you think that's a good start? Do you think that's PR and a lot more needs to be done? What do what's your reaction then to what has happened so far?
Well, I think, let me just start out by saying that we're encouraged by the reaction of the governor and the administration. Obviously, words are one thing and actions are another, and we have to see follow through, and we intend to stay on that. Robert and Jared, you want to add anything to that?
So yeah, referring to what Steve said, yes, the bottom line is, yes, we want them to get prosecuted, but we want them to do it the right way instead of not rushing it. So as far as the prosecution goes, we're trying to give them a little leeway, but yes, we want answers, and yes, we do want them to get prosecuted.
So there have been multiple groups that have been getting together, protesting, raising awareness. I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of speak to all these people who want to mobilize to do something. What should people be doing? What should be the goal?
Liz, you want to take that?
Sure. I mean, obviously, it's really, I think, uplifting to see so many people have such a powerful reaction and also just express condolences and support for the family. Really, in my opinion, that's the most important. We've gotten so much mail, so many just phone messages from random people wishing the best to the Brooks family and kind of cheering us on in this fight. Maybe I don't know if Robert or Jared has something to add.
I would, me personally, and for our family, I would like to say thank you, thank you, thank you. The support is tremendous. It doesn't go unnoticed. And we want you to keep fighting. We want you to keep going. And if anything we can make happen and we can make possible to work together, we will do it. I just want to say thank you again.
I first want to offer my condolences, and I wanted to ask, I know there were 17 individuals named in the lawsuit that were involved. No additional names were coming out over time. Is it 17, or is there other 40 Williams that could be added to the lawsuit?
Liz, you want to go?
Sure. So we have named in the lawsuit the people that, based on the information that has been released so far, we believe bear some culpability in Robert's death. We have more questions for docs and the state about other individuals, and we'll certainly be looking at that. But right now, the people we've named are the people that we believe, based on the facts we have, we can proceed against.
We believe we know there was a cover up, and we don't know at this point how many people were involved in that, and they could become additional defendants as we get more information.
Sorry, let's go back to Izzy.
Also, apologies for your death and loss. In terms of just the length of time that this probably is going to take, as you mentioned, kind of piggybacking off of the support that you're seeing as well. How are you and the family and the team that you've met here planning to draw together support for the ongoing fight, and just any messages for the continuation?
Well, I think that our first task is to find out what happened to Robert, and that is going to be a very important part of this. What was as devastating as what we saw in the video with regard to the violence was the nonchalant attitude of the other people standing around watching. And we feel that that is a sign that this is not a one-off incident, but this was business as usual. And so that is going to be a very important thing for us to find out. And with regard to the outreach, we've gotten information from all corners about other incidents, and some of those are in the complaint, and we're still developing others. So I think that at this point, we're at a very early stage because we don't have all the answers. But once we do, I think we'll be able to direct people in a much more meaningful way.
Yeah, I think, like we said previous, we truly appreciate all of the support and the representation that has come from this. Obviously, it's a terrible circumstance and definitely weighs heavy on our hearts, but we truly appreciate and have an understanding with each American that might have someone that is currently incarcerated or someone that has been previously incarcerated, and know that this isn't just a one-off, and their love and support that they've shown me, my family, and our legal team. We truly appreciate it.
Back there.
How were you notified that your father and your brother?
So I remember the call. I was at work, and I got a call from my grandmother, Mary Brooks, and she told me to come home, and I knew something wasn't right. She didn't want to tell me over the phone. So we got the news from the prison, from Marcy.
You talked to them directly? Or were you given the news from your grandma?
Yeah, I got the news from my grandma.
Oh, so they talked to her?
Yes.
Jared, you?
Yeah, I got the news from my cousin. I was at work as well. It's actually a Christmas party going on downstairs. So for a little while, I kind of felt trapped, just with obviously the vigor of the emotions that I was going through. But yeah, my cousin reached out to me. That's how I found out. I immediately called Robert.
Very sorry for your loss. To your knowledge, had Robert had any previous interactions with any of the 17 people in question?
Yeah, we still have, again, we have no knowledge at this point. We are going to dig deeply into that. The mystery, one of the mysteries here is why he was at Marcy after he was actually housed in Mohawk. So we are very eager to get information on that, find out if there were any prior interactions with these guards, but at this point we have no information.
Do you mind just why you're going for this loss that there were guards, there were some that were named in lawsuits previously that they had a track record, just sort of what this means to that these people aren't new names to have these types of problems?
Yeah, let me start that, and then I'll have Robert and Jared add. There are a lot of lawsuits brought against by prisoners against guards for abuse, and it's very difficult to succeed in those lawsuits for the very reason that there's a lot of clever ways to avoid any evidence of what actually happened. This is kind of the first time that video like this has become available, but it's not the first time that something like this has happened. So I think that the changes that the governor's talking about to make sure that there are no blind spots at prisons is important. But from our standpoint, the guards that have been sued in the past, again, that's not a guarantee that they did things like this, but it certainly is a suspicion that we're going to look into. And guys, do you want to add anything to that?
We're going to do a second round.
Robert, you mentioned that you had been making plans with your father about what your lives together were going to be like when you got out. Can you talk about what those plans were a little bit, what that future was like?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. Me and my father, we had big dreams, and it didn't matter the size of them. Like we dream. I have a son, a 7-year-old, and during his incarceration, they would go regularly visit. So we had dreams on just going out and being able to have fun, for dreams as in doing our music, dreams as in he was writing a book. He was writing stuff a lot in prison where we wanted to do a book and we wanted to get it published. He was very close. He was getting close with my grandfather, and my grandfather has a community service. So my father, he felt like God chose his path to help kids and better, to give them kids better opportunity than he had growing up. So he had big dreams of helping the kids and publishing his book and just spending time with his family. He's been incarcerated 9 years. So just without guards being in the way or a time limit, it just spending time together, really.
What's the name of your grandfather's organization?
My grandfather, he has a community service on the what?
Men's Inspiring Boys and Girls.
You mentioned cover up, and I actually wanted to know, when you did first get that call and get the information from Marcy, what was the story that Marcy Correctional told you happened, and how did that compare to what was actually seen on the video?
So when we first started calling, obviously, when you find out that a loved one has passed, it's what's the cause of death? Was he in a fight? Who was involved? And for the most part, they wouldn't give us any answers. So I would say for the first week or so, we were getting all of the news through the news in real time, which is, I find kind of disrespectful a little bit. But as time went on and we met with the governing bodies and things like that, we became privy to some of the situational things that led to this.
Liz, you want to add anything about the Attorney General's office?
Oh, sure, yeah, I guess maybe I'll back up a little bit too. When families lose a loved one who's in prison, it's often really hard to find out anything about what happened. It's extremely distressing for families. It sounds like those agencies, when they were initially communicating with the family, were pretty tight-lipped about what happened. We did meet with the Attorney General's office on the Monday before Christmas, and they kind of briefed us on things that had been going on, and they wanted to make sure that the family had the opportunity to see the video before it became public. And we certainly appreciated that. We could tell they were working hard on that investigation, and but there's still a lot of information we don't have since there's an open investigation. They obviously needed to keep some things quiet now.
Yeah, I'm really interested in learning more about what type of music you and your father were interested in, but also what is the end game for you? What do you want to see changed? I'm asking, relatives here today. What do you want by this lawsuit and learning the potential criminal charges that we expect may be coming?
Well, the most important thing is we want change. I want the name Robert L. Brooks to be known forever, and not just for his last final moments, but for the future. So this can't happen to any other individuals in the future, because it's a lot of incarcerated individuals, and I do want them to get prosecuted. Let that be known. Yes, I do want them to get prosecuted, and I also want change. I also want change to happen. That's the main goal. As far as music, my father was very creative. He didn't have a specific category or genre. It comes from R&B, hip hop to pop, soul, jazz. Like, my father was very creative. He was one of his last pieces I can remember vividly is him trying to do like a child cartoon, and he wanted me to do the images, and he would work on the audio part. And he was so excited, creating so many things. So my father was a very great man. I'll let Jared finish.
Yeah, I'll say, obviously the prosecution is step one, right? Getting these people, bringing justice against them. But long-term, I think the goal is to have some reform, some policies and procedures put into place. So like Robert said, this doesn't happen to anyone else. And once those laws go into effect, and that there's no blind spots and cameras to kind of shade the inhumane things that happen behind those walls.
What would you say to those officers who you saw kicking and punching and grabbing your brother by the neck? What would you say to them?
I mean, for me, I would say it's, my brother always used to tell me, to err is human, to forgive is divine. And I'm not at forgiveness yet. I'll just say there's consequences and repercussions for your actions, and at some point those are coming, and I hope you're prepared.
And like, this has been a long journey, so I've really been taking things one day at a time. I truly wouldn't know what to say if I seen those guys. I probably would be terrified for my life. But also, I feel like when you say nothing, that's the strongest thing. And I wouldn't even acknowledge them. I don't believe what they did was right in any shape or form. So I wouldn't really have anything nice to say. So thank you.
I couldn't help but notice the pins that you guys were wearing. You want to tell us a little about that?
So yeah, these pins we're wearing are in honor of Robert Brooks, my father. And
my auntie Barbara, she has 1,000 of them made up, and this is just to show our support and feel like I have a piece with me at all times. And also, all these cameras are here, and I want the world to see his face always.
Robert, you mentioned you visited your father in jail and prison during his time that he was incarcerated. Did he ever to you express concerns about his own safety behind bars?
No, my father was very protective, and even if he did feel he wasn't safe, he wouldn't tell me because he know how much I care about him and how worried I would have been. And my father was that type of man, so to answer your question, no, he didn't express his concerns or for his health.
Just hearing that you did visit him and talk to him, what was your last conversation with him like? Or what was the last thing you told him?
So the last time I visited my father was a week prior to his birthday. He's a Leo, and our last conversations was very peaceful and mindful. My father, we never grew up in a church, so my father was getting big into God. He was getting big into the Bible. So our last visit, I remember vividly, he told me, like, you don't know what tomorrow brings. Get close with the Lord, be peace with the Lord. My dad was at peace for coming home. My dad was very much at peace. So our last conversations was he wanted me to be the man he always wanted me to be. And I told him I was working on that. So that was like our last conversation. Thank you for asking that.
You mentioned that you both worked on the Daniel Fruit case as well. Can you talk about the similarities or the lessons that you took from that case compared to this case?
Sure. Well, the Prude case obviously involved the Rochester City police officers and a situation where someone who was having a mental health crisis was killed by the police officers' actions. The difference in this case, in a sense, is that Robert Brooks was in the system and was a threat to no one. Was bound as he was being beaten. So the deaths are similar and they're both tragic and horrific. This one, though, was much more purposeful, I think, and that makes it all the more outrageous that these officers felt, not only the officers, but the others that watched felt that this was just something that they would never have to account for and that they could get away with. And that's what troubles us the most, I guess, is that this is the tip of the iceberg, we think. And that's why we're very interested in digging deeper. But we feel that we successfully resolved the Prude case and got justice for that family. And we hope to do the same thing for this family. But beyond that, and in the Brute case, we also, again, we're hoping to shed light on some of the tactics that have caused these kinds of deaths. In this case, we hope to shed light on what's going on in the prison system.
Oh, one other thing I would maybe just add is that in the Daniel Prude case, like there is in this case, the criminal justice system was also looking at what the officers had done and was determining whether charges should be brought. And that process resulted in no criminal charges being pursued. And that felt like, I think, a big disappointment to a lot of people. And this obviously, we're hopeful that this case does not go in that same direction because some criminal accountability is really important to the family and community and certainly called for based on what you can see in that video.
Just curious, does Robert have any other family in the area and how closely have you been communicating with them through this process?
When you say family, can you clarify, please?
Just, I was wondering if he had any other family in the upstate New York region.
Oh yeah. We have we have several family. He has his last name's Brooks. So and Brooks is my Mary Brooks, that's our side, that's the mother side. But he's also he has the Rick side as well. And we're all over the place, but he has a lot of support here in Rochester, yes.
All set, anyone else? All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that was Robert Brooks's son is well spoken. He seems like a really good kid. Really good kid. And his brother also just seems very calm, gentle, well spoken. I was able to find a copy of the lawsuit while the presser was going on. I will schedule a different live to go over that because it is about 50 pages long, and Sinner's going live here in about 40 minutes. So I will probably do that tomorrow. Probably an earlier live, so like probably 12:31 Eastern, and we'll go over the lawsuit in this case, which I'm interested in seeing everything that they are documenting and alleging in this, which most of us know because we've seen part of the video. And for those of you who were able to watch all of them, I wish I had that strength, but I don't. I'm also going to be looking for the one lawyer had said that they were also filing in the New York Court of Claims, the suit against New York State. So I have a note to try to find that. I looked on the same site that I found the lawsuit in regards to Mr. Brooks, but I couldn't find it. So I'm going to look for that as well. No, Sinner, I want to read through it first just to make sure, because they do have some pictures I noticed as I was scrolling through. So I just want to make sure, I just want to look at it first. Yeah, so thanks everybody for being here. This story is important. I know it's not, the drama that's been happening, but this case is really close to me, location wise, and the fact that, myself as a New Yorker, we found out about this the same time as everyone else is pretty sad. There was a small blurb about a prisoner death at Marcy, but you don't see it often, but you're kind of like, okay, like it was probably, an accident, whatever. Well, I guess there probably are no accidents in prison, but it wasn't really a big deal. And then they released the body cam footage, and I'm glad that some of these officers were idiots and didn't realize that those body cams were recording on standby mode, because if not, Mr. Brooks, nobody would have known the wiser what had happened to him. Nor would there be, I don't know if any of those onlookers would have so-called snitched on their fellow officers or supervisors. So we'll see. They say the law in New York is going to change, but as I put in chat, it doesn't seem like these correctional officers, nurses, and supervisors were those who followed the law. They followed their own laws. And sadly, because of that, Mr. Brooks lost his life. Thanks, Marie. I appreciate that. Yeah. And I also, so I'm going to do the lawsuit tomorrow with Robert Brooks, and then probably Sunday, I want to do another live on the wildfires in California, because I have so many stories I want to talk about, and just more and more keep coming. I did find a news clip that I haven't watched it yet, but some of those displaced animals in the wildfires have been reunited with their family members, which is so great. So great for both the humans and the animals. So that'll probably be on Sunday. What video, Marie? What video? No, I have not watched. You mean Taylor Swift's video? No, I haven't yet. But that is on my list of things to do. Yes. All right, y'all. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your night. And if I don't see you on these YouTube streets, I will see you on the flip side.
Let it take me to that place now. I won't ever let my thoughts get away now. I got better things to do, picking fate now. I just wanna be the best, call me great now. I don't know if I'm okay or insane now. I remember better days on the playground, hoping I can find my way. Even when I'm feeling down, I fight. Even when I don't know what is right, I'ma pick a side and I'ma take pride. I will decide my fate and I will never let them tell me who I am. If you try to shake me, I'll be damned. Planet on the ground is where I stand. Never give up, that was always the plan. It's so cold. Yeah.